Hi everyone, I'm Chien. I'm the supervisor in the VSM team in the TLU department, and this is Keith Miller.
I'm the department head of the AME programs at the aerospace campus.
Great. Now we have the Kombucha guide image labeling application set up, embedded into the aviation course in the Learning Hub. Keith, please share with us how the image labeling application impact learning and teaching perspective from a aviation course point of view.
Yeah, so at the course level or the student level, it's really nice to have such a clean UI for the student to interact with, and it's a great introduction tool. So the student can just become familiar with the basic large groups of the engine at their own speed at home, no pressure, right? And the labels are there, so this can be an introduction tool, or they can, the instructor could put in a different image with no labels and just the numbers, so that it could be more of a test kind of thing. And if once the student gets more comfortable, they could introduce a time limit for themselves, right? So if they can label all the parts of the engine in 20 seconds, they can add a little bit of stress for themselves, right? Just to see if they can do it. So that's and then it'll correct them, right? So that's exciting. That the students can stretch and pull the activity to push themselves. And one of the most exciting things from the faculty point of view, or the faculty management point of view, is that faculty don't need a lot of training for this, right? The image can be swapped out for a more focused part of the engine, or a totally different engine, or not an engine at all. It could be put in different courses, and the word groups can be changed, right? So being accessible to faculty, being very accessible to faculty is a really good bonus, right? Because faculty training is a hard thing to get, right?
And so ease of use is the highlight here.
Very, very, very easy to use, and so easy use for the student and the instructor.
Great.
So that's the best thing about it, probably.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Keith. And now in a different scenario, let's imagine students require more immersive learning for the R250 engine, and please let us know how the LTS software can help students to accomplish this, regarding how can students accomplish immersive learning experience in the R250 engine. Yeah,
absolutely. So obviously the Kombucha is great. It's easy to use and easy to set up, but it's not very in-depth, right? So this would be a similar thing. LTS is a similar thing, but a way more detail, way more depth. So here we can look at the entire engine, right? The student can highlight different parts of it, the combustion section or the compressor section, a sub-assembly of the compressor section, and reset it all if they get confused. And being able to highlight just the diffuser scroll and see that with everything else faded out in 3 dimensions is really valuable, right? So again, a great introduction tool. The instructors would be able to point the students at this, and this would be the first time in the program the students could interact with the engine in 3 dimensions at home, right? And nothing replaces shop experience,
of course,
but this would be a great way to introduce the students to all the terminology, right? What is the bleed valve? Where is the bleed valve, right? It bolts on there. How many bolts? It's got 3 bolts, right? They can see that there. So now when the students walk into the shop, they know what we're talking about, right? They have an image in their mind in 3 dimensions. Really valuable, right? And so that would help the students join the course faster, or get up to speed in the course faster, right?
It's highly accessible.
Yes, so it's all browser based, like you mentioned, right? And so the students can access it from anywhere, and it again, low barrier to entry, right? Ease of use. And so from the instructor point of view, this is really great because it allows the students to get up to speed on the engine, and before the first shop session, let's say. So when the instructor actually gets the students in the shop, they can start onto more advanced parts of working on the engine way faster. Right?
Great, good to hear.
They don't have to spend so much shop time on terminology. They can they can just speed the course up, right?
Yes.
Which maximizes the time in the shop.
Yeah.
And so that's the exciting thing from the faculty point of view. And then there's a lot of potential with this, I think, because right now it's a beautiful viewer to see the different parts of the engine in a lot of detail with texture. But eventually it would be great to build an assignment around it, right?
Yeah.
So it's a great introduction tool, even a review tool, but we could build it into assessments, right? Build it into a test or evaluation, or build an assignment around it where they have to do things in the correct procedure, like disassembling the engine, bolts come out before the engine have.
Similar real-world tasks.
That's right, yeah. So being able to simulate the actual order of events in the shop would be super valuable. So yeah, it's very exciting, and we're looking forward to using it even more.
Thank you, Keith. So thank you for providing all those insightful feedback about how Kombucha and LTS can empower learning teaching experience for the BCIT aviation course curriculum.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.